Brilliance Audio presents The Club King, My Rise, Reign, and Fall in New York Nightlife by Peter Gatien. Performed by Braden Wright. Word had it that ayahuasca ceremonies possessed the power of intensive therapy, a decade of it, crammed into a single weekend. The whole enterprise sounded exhausting. No wonder I resisted. For years, my daughter Jennifer had been proposing that I attend a ceremony and drink the bitter tea to experience the ancient Peruvian rite of self-renewal. She often participated in ayahuasca ceremonies herself, and she swore by them. But I didn't want to be transformed. I had endured enough changes in my life, enough forced renewal to last a lifetime. I'd grown accustomed to my rut, enjoying a peaceful existence in my downtown Toronto condo, living a private, serene, drama-free life, happy to be out of the limelight. But Jen was insistent. She began reserving spots for us at a secretive, invitation-only ayahuasca retreat. I would agree. Then, days before we were scheduled to leave, I'd back out. The cycle would repeat. The thing about a rut is that, while limiting, it's also comfortable. As I headed into my early 60s, my days and ways had acquired a "do not disturb" sign. I felt that all my human potential had been realized long ago. There wasn't much left in my subconscious to uncover. Don't get me wrong, I always liked to push boundaries. As a club owner, I had helped foster some of the most influential cultural movements of the past decades, devoting my energies to sharpening the cutting edge of popular culture. I had heard about ayahuasca in the 60s when we called it yage, and psychedelia pioneers like Timothy Leary and William S. Burroughs endorsed its benefits. Both Leary and Burroughs had hosted parties at my clubs. But I tended to be cynical about the entire New Age trip. Transcendental meditation, channeling past lives, Burning Man, going vegan, and all the other trendy obsessions. I self-identified as a nightlife entrepreneur. All my energies had always been directed outward, not inward. Jen, though, would not relent. "This time you're going through with it, Dad," she told me after securing a retreat reservation for the umpteenth time. "I'm busy that weekend," I said. "I haven't told you when I booked it for yet," she responded. "I'll think about it." In Joseph Campbell's The Hero with 1,000 Faces, this stage of a transformative quest is known as refusal of the call. On a less grandiose level, I was rolling over and hitting the snooze button on my life. "Dad," Jen said to me, steel in her voice that I recognized well, if you don't show up this time, I'm going to stop speaking to you." It was a threat that my daughter was perfectly capable of following through on. The Gatien family had a long-established tradition of the silent treatment. Jen and I had once gone 2 years without speaking to each other. It wasn't a dynamic I was eager to revisit. A couple of months later, I found myself lying on a mat alongside 19 other questing souls gathered in a dimly lit, high-ceilinged room at an undisclosed location. The place had formerly been used as a temple by the Hare Krishnas. The surroundings had leftover mystic vibes and a faint smell of Palo Santo that complemented the altar of freshly cut flowers. Jen was beside me. She had abstained from the tea so she could monitor my progress to see for herself what condition my condition was in. "Just stay on your own journey," Jen counseled me, "and don't let anything else be a concern." I drank the tea, and it was bitter and tasted like tar. The concoction, I knew, was prepared from sections of a kind of creeping vine, Banisteriopsis caapi, otherwise known as the Vine of Death, a fact that didn't exactly flood me with optimism. That was the last orderly thought I had for the next 6 hours. Our shaman guide, a medical doctor from Peru, conducted the entire ceremony in Spanish, a language I don't speak. It didn't matter. I understood everything. The music began to guide me. I didn't know where the musicians came from, and hadn't known what a pool of incredible talent they had in Peru, but it felt like the best concert I'd ever experienced. The reverberating pulse of the drums rose to match the beat of my heart. I had approached the ceremony expecting a 5-minute Six Flags fun ride, and instead found myself shot into orbit. Moments from my past floated vividly into my mind, taking me over to the point that I seemed to become my memories. My thought dreams were real, more real than the former Hindu temple where my body lay in the dark, paralyzed by time. Scenes from my childhood rose and vanished. I felt incredibly vibrantly the moment on the parochial school playground when I lost my eye, the violence of the blow, the wet blood on my cheek. I was with my parents as they sat by my hospital bed. My memories of the trauma had always revolved around my own feelings of pain and confusion, but in that moment, under the influence of the ayahuasca, I'd gained access to my mother's and father's emotions, their agony, their sense of loss. I stood in that room with my mother as she wept tears of regret for her son's injury. I wasn't visualizing her as a younger woman. I was seeing her that way beside me. I'd never experienced the moment so fully, understood the totality of it. A part of me wanted to stay, to witness all I could there by my mother and father, but the ayahuasca moved me on, through my first loves, the years I spent running popular nightclubs, the monumental crash and burn that happened later. On and on rumbled the caravan of my life, one image after another. I experienced trauma, success, excitement, trials and tribulations. I stood posted at the entrance of the tunnel during one of the club's groundbreaking Sunday night hip-hop parties. It wasn't as if I were there. I felt like I really had been transported back in time and space. I could smell the wind off the river on Manhattan's west side, the rain that had earlier washed the sidewalks clean of grunge, freshening the nighttime darkness. I checked out the eager clubgoers waiting to get in, a line of 1,000+ hopefuls that ran down the block and disappeared around the corner. A solitary, ghostly presence, I glided inside.
To keep listening to this audiobook, I've left you a link in the description so you can do it, at no cost thanks to Audible's 30-day free trial.